David Harris, thanks for speaking with Central Coast newspapers once again. The big thing in Parliament for the Central Coast was this 6 cities plan, the mega city of 6 cities. Can you tell us how that will affect the Central Coast?
Yeah, so Dominic Perrottet, when he took over as Premier, announced this 6 cities strategy, and this is the legislation to enable that to happen. It really doesn't change a whole lot for the Central Coast, because part of the legislation is that the current Central Coast plan continue. But what it will do is appoint a new commissioner who will be responsible just for the Central Coast. So we look carefully at the legislation. It doesn't do a whole lot, but if there is better coordination between local government, state government and federal government in terms of delivering infrastructure, and the commissioner has that coordinating role, we didn't see it as being a harmful change, but we will watch it closely to make sure there's no negative impacts. But really, we don't think it'll change all that much, because that Central Coast plan will remain in place, and we already have most of our projects identified. So I don't think people will see too much of an issue. I will point out, though, and I said this in the debate, that this gives the impression that there will be one continuous city all the way from Wollongong to Newcastle. I questioned that and said that the Central Coast is unique, that it has its own character, which is really a series of villages and towns that are joined together under that Central Coast banner. And we were assured that that wouldn't change. So people don't have to worry that all our green space will disappear and there'll be skyscrapers everywhere. Under the Central Coast strategy, there are some centres that have been identified for development, and most of the Central Coast, in fact, almost 80% of the Central Coast will remain bushland.
Well, that must be good to hear, because on our website and on our socials, it's set off a furious debate where people seem to be fearful that we're going to get this this mega city.
Yeah, and we questioned that very carefully. We had a briefing with the Minister's office, and there was that assurance that the current Central Coast plan would remain in place. It identifies where there will be growth, and it also identifies the areas that will be preserved. And of course, we're still pushing for further areas of the coast to be admitted to the National Parks Network. I know Central Coast Council had put up a couple of extra places for that to happen that weren't approved this time, and we'll push for that. But yeah, there's no way it'll be one continuous city. What we do need, though, is proper coordination of infrastructure. So when the housing does go on, particularly in my part of the world, that they do deliver the schools, the water, the sewerage, and the roads that are necessary to cope with that growth. And most of our greenfield is in the north, so it's myself and the member for Swansea and the member for Lake Macquarie who will be probably most impacted by most of these changes, as well as the Gosford CBD.
You must be happy that there was an amendment that made sure that the Commissioner actually lived on the Central Coast.
Oh, absolutely. So we put that amendment forward because local people understand the local context, and although we want the person to be suitably qualified, if they don't live on the Central Coast, then they don't understand the problems that we face every single day. So the government accepted that amendment, so the person will be appointed as a resident of the Central Coast, which is good news. And if they're going to have that coordinating role, they have to have existing relationships. So relationships with local government, relationships with business, relationships with the community, because a good coordinator brings everyone together and gets consensus. And too often on the Central Coast, we get the battle lines drawn up and we get poor outcomes, and that's not what we want to have happen going forward.
David, there is a very real housing crisis across the Central Coast right now. Many people have contacted us and are distraught that they can't find anywhere to live. Do you think that this commissioner and this strategy will assist that in any way?
Well, that's the intention. We said to Rob Stokes that we will wait to see whether that has its desired outcome. The government's brought in a whole lot of things. It's had a whole lot of inquiries. We've been part of the Sydney Commission. We keep getting glossy documents, but the same problems remain. So we will wait and see whether this commissioner position will improve the situation. You know, way back in 2010, 11, we had a regional coordinator with the Department of Premier and Cabinet, and their role was to do this. That role was abolished, and now they're sort of bringing it back again with a different name. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see whether it has the desired effect. The inquiry into housing, regional housing, has reported, and basically it said what we all know, that you need to make sure that you've got water, sewer, and electricity being delivered to sites so that they can move forward. We do need density uplift in some areas, but not in a crazy way, because that brings its own problems, and that it has to be close to public transport. So those principles are good principles, but unfortunately we haven't necessarily seen them delivered over the last decade. And I see that in my area, that although we've had hospital upgrade and new school, and we've had new fire stations and ambulance stations and those sorts of things, that basic water and sewerage infrastructure is still holding things back.
All right, well, that's another kettle of fish entirely, the Water Authority and the councils there. We won't get into that. Thanks for speaking to us.
No, my pleasure, anytime.
Spirit Super is the industry super fund that backs all hardworking Aussies. With support you can count on, low fees, and a history of strong returns, it all starts with Spirit.